ago. Good day, we are Group 6 of Class K33 DSIMGTS, and we will provide a company analysis for the company A-Jaycee Chemicals Corporation. Next slide, please.
For the agenda of our presentation, we will be discussing the company profile, statement of the problem, 3 alternative courses of actions, optimal solutions, recommendations, and lastly, the conclusion. Next slide, please. The company A-Jaycee Chemicals was formed in November 2001. A-Jaycee Chemicals specializes in the manufacturing of paints, thinners, varnish, and other related chemicals for cars, households, and industrial uses. This slide also shows the vision and mission of the company. Next slide, please. The company's product offerings are urethane paints, coating products, thinners, reducers, and household paints. Next slide, please.
The objectives of the study are to maximize efficiency with regards to the production of their products, particularly glossy paint, to formulate the marketing advertising strategy for the company, and to minimize the transportation expenses of the company. Next slide, please. It's stated in the slide that the research questions created that would satisfy the objectives of the paper of the company. Next slide, please. The following slides will show the data gathered from the company. Next slide, please. Next slide, please.
With the entry of COVID-19 in the nation, many businesses were greatly affected by the recession to follow. A few problems from within the company arose, such as the company's overproduction of its best sold product, which was the glossy paint, the over-budgeting of product transportation, and the company's lack of proper marketing. Next slide, please.
For the first alternative course of action, the group aims to address the problem with excessive production for glossy paint by maximizing the quantities that will be produced through the 7-step it has for production. The slide shows the prices for every size of glossy paint as well. The group utilized linear optimization and maximization for the spreadsheet model because the goal for this model is to help the company in their decision making with how they can be both quantity and quality wise for glossy paint. Next slide, please. The table shows the overview of 8 stations per production and the number of hours it takes per station for glossy paint per day. The group believes that using this linear optimization in maximizing the quantities that can be produced, it can reduce the problems in their production because it would depict how efficient their operations can be and for the employees not to overwork themselves in terms of production. Next slide, please. This spreadsheet model depicts the maximized amount of glossy paint that should be produced by the company in a month. Utilizing the linear optimization for maximization, the group was able to determine that the company must produce glossy paint for 6 in 1 liter, 11 for 2 liters, and 3 for 4 liters per employee for them to obtain a sales of 8,905 pesos. With the total number of hours per production, it gives the employees a slack or reduces the time of 38.37 hours. The problem was solved by utilizing Microsoft Excel solver tool. It also used simplex LP as a solving method since the problem is utilizing a linear function. Next slide, please.
The group recommends prioritizing the demand before production and following this number of hours per station because this would benefit them financially instead of producing beforehand, which could risk overproduction. Next slide, please. Although this benefits the company, there are downfalls with this course of action. First, if this kind of system is implemented, their employees will take time since they are not familiar with this kind of operation system. Second, the spreadsheet model is profit ratio based, which means that the demand can change. Lastly, the amount of slack time wouldn't have an effect on the worker's salary, only the number of hours they worked. Next slide, please.
For the alternative course of action number 2, it was mentioned in the statement of the problem that the company is struggling in determining how they can be both cost-effective and at the same time satisfy the supplies needed by their consumers or retailers. The group came up with an idea of an efficient outflow for transportation of boxes to their store warehouses because this attempts to determine the most efficient way in transporting their products while minimizing its expenses to it. The group used the total average amount of boxes that are being delivered in a week, which is 2,500 boxes. Next slide, please. The table shows the transportation overview and unit cost per box, transported from the company's warehouse to store warehouses of the customers. It also includes the boxes produced by the company and the amount of boxes demanded by the consumers or customers. Next slide, please.
The optimal solution. The company can be cost efficient by only having one transportation cost for store warehouses 1, 3, 4, and 5. And they still do satisfy the customer's demands in this way, and the boxes being produced simultaneously. The total transportation cost for the company is around 39,400, which is cheaper by 3,900 than its original transportation cost. The solving method is simplex LP because it uses linear regression. Next slide, please. The group recommends this outflow transportation because it is a way cheaper and would be the betterment of the company in the long run, since this allows the company to use their money that they were able to save with the new transportation costs. Next slide, please. The first disadvantage would be the adjustment period and implementation for the employees, and the second one is time was not part of the planning process, which would be critical for the company if they still choose to implement this system. Next slide, please.
As mentioned earlier, the head manager of A-Jaycee mentioned its issue regarding the company's marketing strategies, where we found that the company lacks in digital advertising. With that, the group suggests two different ways of marketing, traditional and digital marketing.
Next slide, please. The table shows the prices for every traditional and digital marketing platform the group will use. The group did research on the prices and amount of estimated readers each month per platform to make the data reliable and accurate if the company will utilize it and will fit on the budget that allocated by the company, which is 70,000 pesos. Next slide, please. The figure is the spreadsheet model on how to maximize the advertising budget provided by the company. If the company will utilize both newspapers and Facebook marketing strategy, this maximizes the amount of readers for the company's advertisement by 1,224,568 readers, which made the company save also 11,400 pesos from the provided advertising budget as well. For the solving parameters, the objective for the third model was attained by using Microsoft Excel solver tool that is shown in the figure above. Also, the advertisement utilizes set to binary because this determines how many of the provided advertisements will be used. Next slide, please.
Seeing as to how cheap a newspaper ad would cost for the company, the group decided that it should also be supplemented by Facebook ads, which come at a cheaper price while still having the same reach regarding its audience. Next slide, please.
However, the disadvantage is that social media continues to develop and it never stops. The company can get left behind if they do not continue to improve this strategy. Also, the spreadsheet model only forecasts this period itself, which can be a weakness in the future if they just base their marketing off this model. Next slide, please.
Based on all the three alternative courses of action and spreadsheet models, the group provided the third ACA as the most recommended by the group. This creates an opportunity for the company to expand their marketing system, and since they are eager to establish themselves in the online market, it's a good time as well for the company to do this because we're in a pandemic situation. And it would be difficult for them to gain potential customers if they would just rely on traditional marketing by providing brochures and flyers to people. Utilizing both Facebook and newspaper advertising with an amount of 1,224,568 potential readers they can get from these advertisement platforms, the amount of readers has a high probability for the company to gain potential loyal customers. Next slide, please.
In conclusion, the given alternative courses of action aims to solve the problems of the company with the use of different linear optimizations. The spreadsheet models answer the given problems and detail the outcome of these solutions. Next slide, please. This research paper provided objectives that the company can use as a reference in how they can improve. The company may see the spreadsheets model as an opportunity for them to be statistically consistent. Lastly, decision-making for the managers and owners of the company is the most significant factor in all the problems they're facing. They should be able to determine the pros and cons if there are solutions that they want to implement. Next slide, please. This ends our presentation. Thank you and have a good day.